Neil Armstrong was that type of individual that was that cool, that did that. In fact, they had a lunar trainer out there. They called it the bedstead. And it was rockets that were letting down to land on the moon. And it was like the same type of apparatus as the lunar landers that went down. And this one failed with Neil on it. And he ejected from that and saved his own life, where a lot of people probably would have ridden down with it and been killed. But he ejected from that and went back to his office that day. And the other astronauts are walking around, and they heard this, and they looked, and Neil was in his office working, and they looked in and says, Neil, you know, were you on the bedstead when it crashed this morning? And he says, no, I wasn't on it when it crashed. You know, he said I had ejected. But anyway, he was that type of person. Of all the people that I have met in my life, and I count Alan Shepard and John Glenn and Tom Stafford and Gene Cernan, who was the last person on the moon. I count all of these guys, you know, in the same league, the same class, because any of them could have landed. In fact, Deke Slayton, who was the chief astronaut, one of the original Mercury 7, Deke told me this because he was on the book with Alan Shepard and I, with Moonshot, which was a New York Times bestseller back in 1994 and 95. Anyway, he told me that Armstrong was commander of 11, and that would be the first attempt to land on the moon. And he thought that if there was an emergency, then Neil could handle it. He was very satisfied with that. And he also had the same satisfaction with the experience and all of Pete Conrad, astronaut Pete Conrad, who commanded Apollo 12, the second landing. And a lot of people thought that they would, you know, abort the first landing, they'd have a problem, and Pete would really be the first person on the moon. Well, of course, Neil set it down, even with a computer problem that almost caused them to abort, but they worked through it. He was just the coolest person and the greatest person. And when it comes to talking about a quality person, there's no better than Neil Armstrong, and we'll miss him. He was, with what he did for life, I think some would say, Melissa, what he did in his profession, that he was fortunate to reach the age of 82. He just reached that the first week of August. And we all thought he was doing well from his heart operation. I don't know what the details are, but apparently there was something that happened there. All I know is that Carol, his wife, called Tom Stafford, General Tom Stafford, who commanded Apollo 10. He also commanded the Apollo Soyuz handshake with the Russians in space, called me and said that Carol had called her and that Neil was dead.
And he had this heart surgery 3 weeks ago, is that right?
That sounds about right. I reported it at the time, and we were, had kind of dropped the story because of everything was going on. And I talked to anybody about it was 3 or 4 days ago, and he was fine. You know, so I'm very shocked that something happened here, and I'll be interested in finding out because I had bypass surgery back in November '89, so it's been coming up here, you know, almost 30 years since I had. Well, no, I'm going it's a little too far. It's coming up on about 23, 24 years, I guess, since I've had mine.
So I just want to bring our viewers up to date with this very sad breaking news. We have that astronaut Neil Armstrong has died at the age of 82, 2 or 3 weeks approximately after having heart surgery. We don't know the exact details, but we are on with NBC's Jay Barbary, who knew the man personally. Pardon me, Mike, what was that? NBC Nightly News anchor Brian Williams is on the phone to join us on this sad breaking news. Hi, Brian.
Hi there. A point I just made over on the network is that we have lost, I think, the last American hero, while more than just the most recent. Everybody's got to remember, no matter what is said and written about him in the days to come, No part of that Apollo 11 mission was guaranteed, far from it. Kennedy said we'd make it by the end of the 60s, and it was the summer of 69. They were walking around up there on the moon. They had to get back in and press a button and fire rockets that had never worked on the surface of the moon before. But none of that fazed Neil Armstrong and his partner, Buzz Aldrin. He was a naval aviator. He was an engineer. He really finished out his life at Purdue. Very serious, very introverted, never cashed in. I just said to Lester Holt, there was never a chain of Neil Armstrong restaurants. There was never an action figure that kids could buy. He wouldn't do it. He wasn't into it. That's not why he went in the first place. And I just think the effortless courage is what he'll be remembered for. He ended up really being part of the iconography of America at its very best.
You know, I personally was unfortunately too young to really remember the magic of that time. But as a young man growing up in America, I can imagine that it was just fascinating to follow.
This sounds like an ancient story, but we had, those of us who were complete space and aviation geeks, actually had his recordings from the cockpit on records, on LPs. And, you know, way before tapes, DVDs, CDs, and Lord knows iTunes. And there was such fascination. We had gone to another world. So to listen to his voice, that cool, calm, calling off the markers on the way down to land on the surface of the moon, it was the marker of our times. Everyone remembered where they were, who they watched it with. We thought the pictures were of such great clarity, and of course it looks like an oil painting compared to high-definition television. But really the way he carried himself was so unusual. In a world where lesser people are celebrities for the sake of being celebrities, this was the biggest guy on the planet when he came home from this mission, and he wasn't having any of it.
I know that he lived a very quiet life after this career, but did you ever have the fortune of meeting him?
I did, and we were able to share a dinner recently, of all things, with my friends who are recipients of the Congressional Medal of Honor. One of them got up and told a story that just, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. He said that when he was in the Hanoi Hilton as a prisoner of war, they would always go through their packages from home and scour them of any contraband, any clues that would let them know their families were alive, perversely. And they emptied a box from America in the Hanoi Hilton when John McCain was imprisoned, and a piece of newspaper headline fell out, and it said, "Man walks on moon," and that's how they knew. It had been tucked in the lining of this cardboard box. Neil Armstrong had never heard that story before, and it was told at a dinner in New York City a few years back. But, you know, a lot of people came away wanting something else out of Neil Armstrong and being almost disappointed that he was such an introvert, such a closed figure, such a shy man. But that's the way he was. And, you know, we needed one global figure like that for his time, and it was him.
Well, it really does take you back to different times, a more innocent time in America, really, where people did come from such humble beginnings. And clearly that is the story of Neil Armstrong, the way he carried himself. Will that be his legacy?
I think so. These are, it was a time when nothing was guaranteed. A lot of people argue we were better when we were striving. We had a target. Every one of us could see it in the night sky above our homes. To this day, people of a certain age in this country look up at it, and we can't believe that our detritus is still up there on the surface. We can't believe the audacity of President Kennedy and the NASA space program, that we named that as a target, landed, walked around, and planted the flag. And now our science is so good, we can see, using instruments, the flags we left there. We can see the footprints that Armstrong and Aldrin left there. A lot of people have lamented that Neil Armstrong's death coincides with the death of our manned space program. We now need the Russians to get a ride to space. It was the Russians we were fighting tooth and nail to get to the moon, to get to space. So sadly, that era died, and now one of the lions of aviation and space exploration has died as well.
NBC's Brian Williams, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Very much appreciate that. Let's go to Mark Kelly now, who is an astronaut and husband, of course, of former Arizona Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords. He joins us on the phone to talk about today's sad news. What is your first reaction?
Well, I just found out a few minutes ago. And, certainly, Neil Armstrong was one of my childhood heroes, and that lasted until the last time I saw him. I mean, and until today. I spent a day with him in February at the 50th anniversary of John Glenn's historic flight. And he's such a wonderful person to be around, and such a nice man. He was looking forward to getting back to flying again, which he had recently took a little bit of a hiatus from. So this is certainly very, very sad news. And Gabby's, just commenting about how sad she is to hear this.
Well, I can't even imagine. Well, obviously, all America will be in mourning today because he has always been described as a true American hero in the most honest sense of that word, a real hero. What was it like for you to be a young man and have these aspirations to be able to look up to somebody like Neil Armstrong?
And I did. I looked up to him from the time I first learned of him when I was 5 years old and he set foot on the moon for the first time. I'll tell you one of the highlights of my career as an astronaut. Up there with my 4 space flights was to have the opportunity to sit next to him for dinner this past February, actually between him and John Glenn. Neil Armstrong was such a special person, and he will be missed.
I can't imagine the sadness for you today, also for the space program. We're going to take a break here very briefly, but if you have just about 20 seconds, your wife's reaction to this.
Well, I just told her not 5 minutes ago, and she just commented that she was very, very sad. That this is a sad day, and we were, one of her favorite photos. And she has a huge grin on her face. There's a photo of her standing between Neil Armstrong and Gene Cernan, the first and the last men to walk on the moon. So she'll be, this will be a sad day for her as well as the rest of the country.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with that. Mark Kelly, thank you very much for taking the time out of this day to be on here with us and to share those stories about such an incredible man. To everyone who is just joining us right now, a true American hero, Neil Armstrong, has passed away today. We just heard this news from NBC's Jay Barbary. He was 82 years old and apparently had just had heart surgery just a few weeks ago, and apparently everyone who knew him was told that he was doing well. But once again today, the first man to step on the moon, Neil Armstrong, who famously said, "One small step for man, a giant leap for mankind," is dead today.